Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys about the 4 rules of synthesizing drums. These are really important things that I've learned to actually make drums that work and don't just sound like a sine wave with a short volume envelope, but really hit hard, right? So the first rule is going to be multi-tier envelopes. So I've got operator here. You could use any synth that just has like more detailed envelopes. And what do I mean by multi-tier envelopes? Basically, you need to have kind of 2 parts. You're going to have the body of the sound, which is this. You notice I brought that initial up to 0, and then we can use the attack, and now you'll have this body, and then you'll have that. Right? So you get this very kind of like full sound. Let's go ahead and put in a note on just A. Okay, and then we'll go up a little faster too. So what you're going to have here now is a little bit more body to the sound, because if you don't do this, this is kind of where like you can just kind of get stuck with those old Kraftwerk kind of drums, which are cool, but probably not what you're trying to make. Right, somewhere around there is good. We'll bring the pitch down too. But it's just more full, because like when you look at kick waveforms, like if we just get a sample, I know that this will have like a good waveform, right? If we take like this one, if you look at it, it has a lot, like it isn't just this quick like and over. You can see there's a lot of body to that. So we need to recreate that with the envelope. So that's basically what that is. And usually I'll dial this in more once we get to the next step too, which is you need a really good pitch envelope, right? And again, there's another reason I love operator, because it can do this. This is really where the 2-tier technique comes in. So we're going to bring the attack up again here. I've just brought the pitch envelope in. And then we're going to take the initial up to there, and we're going to shape it like this. And now we're starting to get somewhere. Now if we don't have the attack, right, you don't quite get that like to the sound. So and this is really where the like actual drum sound comes from, you know, because a lot of times, obviously, like I said, with those very basic pitch envelopes, you can end up just not really getting that, you know? Like it'll punch and it does sound like a kick, but at the end of the day, like, you know, we want something more like this. And you can shape this however. You know, I'll typically take it up about there. And also the decay as well, because you need, again, you need that like kind of body to sort of like go down. And there you go. And if you're really trying to do something savage, you could bring up the release, right? And then you could like play with this end here. Right? You could kind of get some cool waves that way too, but right, and shaping that attack slope will basically give you whichever kind of sound you're going for. This is where you can really dial in the volume envelope too. Like they have to sort of work together, right? So once you got this sounding pretty good, I'll definitely keep tweaking it over time, but this is pretty solid for now. I think the next rule of synthesizing drums is low-key high-pass filters. And not low-key a high-pass filter, but having a high-pass filter that's very low-key and not super noticeable. But what it does is, like, let's say we go to about literally like there, right? It goes from this to this. Right, so now we're starting to get a bit more punch out of the sound. And let's pitch this down a tiny bit too in the MIDI. Right, it starts to remove some of that like synth kind of sound. And I also think that it's important to play with the shaper a bit. And the resonance, as you can see too, right? It's a lot of things that work together. Also, just make sure you turn the volume up. But this filter does a lot for opening it up. And it's so subtle. Like, you wouldn't even think a high-pass filter at 47 hertz does that. But it goes from this to this. It really makes it a kick, you know? And then you can just kind of massage that until it sounds good. So that's the second rule. Play around with the high-pass filter. Also, if you're doing snares or hi-hats or anything like that, not just kicks, but it does really do a lot for this. And it's something you wouldn't think to do. But yeah, there you go. Like, you get a really, really big 909 kick. And this goes into the next rule, which is aim to not really have to process it too much afterwards, right? I think a lot of what happens with synthesizing kicks or drums in general is, you know, people will take it and they'll try to make this little sound and then think, oh, I can go and compress it and I can do all this stuff later. But if you notice, like, we're really not building this to have to do anything. Like, you could call the high-pass filter processing, I guess, but really it's like, I'm really just focusing, instead of trying to compress this or transient shape it or anything like that, I'm just focusing on making the initial like volume and pitch envelope do everything I would want it to do, right? And maybe we can make that a bit shorter now. You can also play it like that on the envelope, but I like it like this. So from here, if you have this good sound, you got the high pass and you don't over process it, I think the last rule here that can really help you get like even cooler sounds out of this is going to be layering, right? And what you can do to do this is you can just duplicate whichever synth that you made your sound in. In the case of this kick, we have a pretty good transient, but I also think like a little more click on that could sound really good too. So we're going to take the second one, and this you can bring down the attack. And we're actually going to use FM. Another reason why I like to use operator. Right, and you can play with that fine tune. You can play with a lot of settings with the FM and what you're doing it with. In this case, just 2 sine waves is pretty good. You could also use some noise here. You know, it really just depends on what's sounding good. I think this is sounding really good for a little transient. And then we can also high pass that a bit. And let's make it even a little shorter. You can play with, this doesn't always need the shaper, but now if you bring that down, like it needs to be pretty quiet. It goes from this to this. And then where you set the high pass on this one will really change the sound too. Like, check this out. Right, because you're getting different crossover frequencies and stuff. You see, if you start to play with the pitch envelope though, a big part of this is that these are really like well synced up, and like you get a kind of layering that you can't really get with 2 different samples, because obviously like it's a lot cleaner if it's the same pitch envelope. And the second you start messing with that, it's not nearly as punchy, right? And it's not because of the pitch envelope, it's because these are really like sonically and phase wise a lot closer, so it's just gonna hit that much harder. Another good thing too when we're talking phase, why I like using operator for this, is the phase retrigger. Because another thing with this, like let's mute this for a second, is if you don't have this phase retriggering, basically meaning it's at the same point on the sine wave every single time, check out what it sounds like. It's subtle, but it sounds like the kick is like kind of like going up and down because we're really getting different parts of the sine wave. So here we can re-trigger, and we could even dial that up and make it a little clickier. Like I'll do that on the second one too. Let's just do it on both of the waveforms. And then at the end, you're probably not even going to have the second one that loud too, as you can see. But it's just giving you that little bit of extra transient. If you really want to, you could do a little bit of like this, like maybe a drum bus. And just blend it. Or what I would probably do would be a saturator. And again, just blend it. But yeah, those are the 4 rules of synthesizing kicks. If you follow these, and really drums in general, if you follow along and do this, you really won't go wrong. And you'll have actual drums that sound powerful and hit just the same as samples. It's not that hard. I just think there's a lot of misinformation out there. And I think there's a lot of people showing you stuff that doesn't really get that sound. You know, it's one thing to get like the Kraftwerk drums, but we're really trying to make some kicks that punch through the club. So this does that. And yeah, thanks for the support, everybody. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. Let me know if you want to see more kind of guides like this in the comments. I'm definitely down to do a lot more of them. You can get all my sample packs, project files, and templates so that you can make an awesome track right now the second you download. Right at the top of the description on my website. Thanks for the support, everybody, and I'll see you tomorrow with another video.